Hello everybody and welcome back to the Two Norries podcast. This week we have an interesting lady and we had an interesting, I suppose, interaction with her only a couple of days ago. So interesting in fact, on Saturday night I got an email from her and on Monday night she's on the podcast. Without further ado, Victoria Keating, singer, songwriter, how are you and welcome to Churchfield.
Thanks so much, James. Thanks to me. Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here. Honestly, I've been following you, from the time my daughter Alex told me about you over the summer, and I just think what you're doing is fantastic.
Your daughter is in Amsterdam?
She's in Amsterdam.
Well,
yeah, Alex.
This is interesting now because apparently this podcast has been listened to in 24 countries. There's somebody in the Cayman Islands has watched every episode.
That's tough.
Because we get the analytics. Now, my sister taught me that they might be using a VPN or some sort of software that hides their address where they're... So, it's been accessed in Amsterdam. It can be accessed in the Cayman Islands. I want to believe it's been accessed all over the world.
Of course.
We're a worldwide podcast.
Global.
So, hi to your daughter and
Thanks,
tell her thanks for the recommendation.
I love you.
Exactly. But you sent us an email the other night.
Yeah.
A few months ago, Christy Moore sent us an email saying he enjoyed the podcast. He was a big fan. He particularly liked John Lonergan's and Senator Lenormand's episodes. And I was like, Jesus Christ, Christy Moore. We've a lecturer in criminology. She's from Vienna. And he was like, oh, Christy, what's the big deal, Christy Moore? I said, it's like, Christy Moore is to us what Mozart is to Vienna.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best description I could give Christy
brilliant.
Moore. But
That's brilliant.
can you tell us how Christy Moore became a fan of the podcast or your link to him?
Well, I'll tell you, my daughter Alex sent me, as I said, the link to you guys over the summer, and I've been listening to you on my walks ever since. You know that thing, temptation bundling? I'm only allowed to listen to the podcasts when I'm walking. I can't be doing it around the house. I have to be outside and walking. Yeah. So she sent me a link and I loved it straight away. She said, Mom, I think you're going to love it. And I said, I don't know why I said Mom there because she calls me Ma'am. But anyway.
Yeah, that's
See, there you go now.
Ma'am. Yeah.
But she said, I think you're going to love this. And normally when she sends me something, I love it. But this was really special. Like I was blown away. I was blown away by what you're doing. And being so honest and in your own accents and not trying to be something, or anything like that. It's just amazing what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So I thought, Jesus, Christy would love this. So I sent him on the links and I put in the thing, here's some goodies for you, Christy. And it was linked to you guys, and there was also a link to my friend Martin Lee. He did he had a song done. So anyway, he emailed me back saying he loved it, thought it was brilliant, and he said the two favourite episodes was
Mikey Oldham, is it? Mikey, young lad.
Yeah, it was Lonergan and the other guy. I don't remember the second one, but so, and then Alex sent me a screenshot of a tweet that he said Mara lads or something.
Yeah, he sent
Mara
us
lads.
the email and I screenshotted that and threw it up into Twitter.
That's what cool, okay. See, that's my technical, But I suppose when I got sober first, I met the love of my life, Declan Sinnott, and we started singing together, I suppose in around 2012 maybe, and before that he would be recording with Christy, and they would record in Dec's house. Dec has a studio in his house, so Dec asked me to record some backing vocals on Christy's album Folktale at the time. I think that was 2012, something like that. And he said, look, I haven't said it to Christy that I'm putting the harmonies on, but he said it's like this: if he likes it, you'll stay on, and if he doesn't like it, so I just thought, whatever happens, I'm actually singing on a Christy Moore song today. In my head, that's enough, But so Christy really liked it, and I've been on all of his albums since, and we've done tours and things like that, and played Vicar Street and Glastonbury, Barrowland, and the Waterfront Hall in Belfast.
How is it? what's it like for somebody that's in recovery to be going to all these different festivals and stuff?
Do you know, that's a great question, because when I came out of recovery first, Timmy, I was offered to do a few things with them, just in bands around. And one thing I was offered was to be the lead singer in a Led Zeppelin cover band. And I love Led Zeppelin, like, you know, so I was going, yeah. But then I thought, no, you can't do that. Because I'd be just going back into the same bars that I was falling out of a few months back, do you know? Like, so I thought, no, I can't do that.
Be like asking me to do the tambourine for the Pogues. I'd be drinking out of a keg in a half an hour.
Exactly. There's no way. I mean, it would be brilliant, but like it would be too brilliant. So I said no, and I just said I'm going to give myself this time now to just recover, you know, and like put some work on myself, because you know yourself, you come out of addiction, and I was 17 in my head. I was still 17.
Yeah.
I had the emotional maturity of a 17-year-old, do you know, because that's when I started drinking. So
do you want to tell us a little about where you're from and what it was like growing up?
We went straight forward.
We were straight to Christy.
But like, you know, he's the link. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, he's the link to the show. Like,
exactly.
You know?
But we're only interested in you right now.
Yeah.
And I think when we start with guests, by the time you get into your main part of your story, if we can get an understanding of who you are, where you're from, people can be able to identify with you and relate with you. I put a person behind the story. So you said you're from Cobh.
Yeah, I'm from Cobh originally. Born in 1970, so I was 50 this year in February. And
happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Big one. Yeah.
I'm a big girl now.
I'm 40 myself.
Jesus.
There's honesty here today.
I am pushing on.
Yeah, it's like 50 is the best age ever. Like,
fuck it, I was 35 on
it.
Halloween, and Rowan's birthday is the 20th of December, so...
Oh my God. You're only babies.
I know, yeah.
But yeah, so I grew up in Cobh, and I mean, I had a great childhood. My parents are lovely people, you know. Couldn't say we wanted for anything, you know. There was just always a want in me, I suppose, you know. And I discovered drink, I suppose, when I was really shy growing up, and I hated school so much. Oh my God. I was like, academically, I would have been pretty okay, you know, pretty good in primary school. And then whatever happened in secondary school, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do the whole social thing. I hated it so much. And I was so quiet. I used to go on the hop, but nobody would realise I wasn't there, because, you know, I used to cycle. I used to get, oh my God, I'd leave home in the morning and I'd have my tracksuit in my school uniform. I'd have my school uniform on, and I'd have a tracksuit in my backpack, or my school bag, like at the time, and I'd cycle out to Fota Gardens, and I'd stay there for the day. I'd get changed in my tracksuit and stay there for the day, just to not have to go to school, to not have to be there, do you know?
Yeah,
I can relate to that, really.
It's awful, isn't it?
And it's the shyness, and then the alcohol just relieves you from that, doesn't it?
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
secondary school is a massive step from
Huge.
From primary, like, you know?
It's huge. I feel like we need almost like a course for kids when they're transitioning from primary to secondary. Do you know, it's a huge deal.
Like, you've gone from a child to a young adult.
Yeah. And you're
Overnight.
supposed to, and you're supposed to behave like that. And it's a totally different system. You know, all the teachers react to you differently. You're thrown into this situation where you now have 10 teachers instead of one.
Exactly.
You're not minded so much. You're supposed to be,
and
you
some
know.
schools do it better than others. In certain areas,
Yeah.
the youth workers will also kind of fill the gap and have like transition programs. Now, like what you're saying, they'll work with the 6th class towards the end of 6th class and the first maybe semester or first year, just to kind of support them. But it's not, it's ad hoc. Do you know what I mean?
It is, you know, and education tends to be a one size fits all, doesn't it? You know, like, and all kids are different, and that's really not taken into consideration. But I was really shy anyway, and I just discovered drink, I suppose, around 17, and that was it. Pinball machine lighting up. Here I am, world. And that's a
great way to describe it, isn't it?
It's not mine, actually.
It's just perfect.
I heard in the rooms one night, and I thought, oh, that's me. That is me. Like,
this
know?
is what I've been looking for all my life.
This is my missing link. Coming alive, and I could talk to people. I could be myself, or what I thought was myself. I could be fabulous, like, do you know, go out and drink and...
We're back in the room. But yeah, you started drinking at 17.
Yeah.
You were a shy girl at the time.
Yeah.
Drinking relieves you from the shyness, give you confidence.
Yeah.
Was the drinking chaotic from day one, or did it gradually get worse?
It's good. I think it gradually got worse, really, you know. Yeah, I think there was a time... No, do you know what? I think it was pretty bad from the start, because I did things that I wouldn't do if I wasn't drinking, do you know? So I think that's probably bad. Yeah.
What kind?
That we all do that.
Yeah.
You know, every single one of us, we do things like that in our normal mind without alcohol or substances.
Yeah.
We would not do them, like.
Absolutely.
You know, so
yeah.
like, I definitely relate to that.
Yeah, it just feels terrible afterwards, you know.
And the guilt and the shame, or
terrible.
if you're waking up the following morning and you've no recollection of what happened, if you're after blacking out, the fear and anxiety of what did I do, what's the damage,
where am I?
Yeah.
Go out on the road to see where you are.
Yeah.
Where, you know, it's like...
Oh Jesus Christ! You were just like reading my mind, not even knowing where you are, looking around, just going, what the fuck?
You have to go out onto the street to see, get a vague idea of where you are, and try and piece the night together, you know.
Or else waking up, James probably related to this, or else waking up inside in a cell and saying, what guard station is it?
Yeah. Oh God.
Not knowing where you are, like.
Yeah.
That's another part of it for us.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah.
I can definitely relate to you, dear. Go on anyway, Vicky. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're fine. Jesus, I am just flashbacks. You know, when you get flashbacks and things come into your head, and you just behave in a way that you wouldn't when you're not drinking. You know, and do things that they're definitely not in your character. You know, and continue to do them, and then wonder why you can't stop doing them, or wonder why this happens. And you know, like, I just thought it was mental for years. I didn't realize. I just thought that I was insane, that I couldn't function in normal life. You know, I couldn't. You know, got married very young. I suppose I was 21. I suppose when I got married, I was pregnant, and just things kind of snowballed from there. Had 3 kids pretty quickly. So I suppose I was 25. I had 3 kids, and very. Yeah, I guess, you know, there was violence in the marriage, and
Was your husband a drinker?
Yeah. So I mean, my kids didn't stand a chance, you know, 2 alcoholic parents, you know, and they, so he was a drinker as well. As far as I know, he's still in active addiction. We're divorced since 2000.
Yeah.
My God, it's 20 years. 2004. Sorry, 2004. Yeah.
Do you know, during COVID,
Yeah.
there's been a huge increase in domestic violence because of the drinking in the home, and people are at home.
Yeah.
Have you any advice for a woman that may be listening or watching, stuck in a relationship like that, or maybe a child in a household like that, or
get out of it? Just go, run anywhere. Don't stay. It's not going to get better.
Even for men too. It's
and
a big,
men.
And men, like, it's a big thing for men. And
and tell somebody. Just
even if there's a man watching this or listening to this, that's actually the aggressor. It doesn't have to be like that either for him.
No,
he
doesn't.
can all it's just a way of life now, and a habit, and but he can also get help. There's help there for aggressors and victims. You know?
Absolutely, and exactly. He doesn't have to be like that, as you say. Life doesn't have to be like that. Just because we're stuck in some kind of a mold or some kind of a phase or whatever it is, it doesn't mean we have to stay there.
Yeah, and if you're in a household where there's violence like that, that's not normal behaviour, and that's not like when you're in an environment like that, it can become normalised.
That's right.
Become what this is just especially if a child has grown up in a house where there's always been violent, and there's always been alcohol, they just think that this is how it is.
Exactly.
But that's a very toxic kind of way of living. And there is another life. And if people want more information or help, they can contact us, and we'll put them in links with supports as well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Must have been tough for you, though.
Yeah,
back
it
then,
was.
25, 3 kids married, and and, you know, drink is a big
big part of
your
both
life,
of our
like,
stories.
Exactly,
you know,
and sometimes drink is probably something that is blocking out a lot of the shit that's going on for you, it's taking you away from a lot of the stuff that you can't face. I know that's how it was in my own life with alcohol and drugs, you know, so yeah, it must have been tough, like.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, it was tough on the kids, you know, and I still carry an awful lot of that shame and guilt around that today, you know, and I've, you know, and we're all kind of still suffering the consequences of those years because, you know, things have happened, you know, in sobriety, even in the last 10 years, as you know, it's not when you get sober, your life doesn't suddenly go up on the top of the Sound of Music hill and go, the hills are, you know, there's a lot of work to do, like, you know, there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of facing the truth, like facing the music.
That's exactly when it starts, when you really have to look at yourself and you start going back into your life and having to deal with a lot of the stuff that the alcohol and drugs would have blocked out for all the years. You're left with all that stuff because your mind isn't occupied anymore with the thoughts of where am I getting the next drink, where am I getting the next drug, gamble, whatever it may be. You know, now it's occupied with, what about that shameful thing I done, that guilty thing I done. You have a lot of shame and fear. All these different...
And that shyness you were masking comes back tenfold.
It does, yeah, it really, really does. I found the first year of sobriety really difficult. I was going out of my mind, you know, I really was, like, I couldn't handle, I suppose, just being myself without having something to get away from myself.
I remember the first meeting I went to when I come out of rehab. The anxiety now I felt without having the medication, which my main drug, even though I was on heroin and methadone, my go-to drug was Valium and Xanax and Rohypnol and stuff like that. Complete relieve me of any insecurity, self-esteem issues that I would have had. I didn't give a shit when I took medication like that. Without that, presenting myself in my home city now, without that crutch, the anxiety, the first year now, like what you're talking about, I remember being in a meeting with my coat on, sweating and gasping, and I wouldn't take off my coat or move just for fear somebody would look over at me. I was so insecure and so anxious. It's a horrible feeling, and being in town, being in shops and just walking out the door and dropping what I was going to buy, just had to get out, you know. But it does pass.
It does. It really does. You know, it really does. Like, it's crazy, but, you know, sometimes, you know, we all talk about the washing machine head and something, and you feel yourself, you get yourself to a meeting, and like a few minutes later, you feel that kind of sense of calm just coming over you, you know, and I suppose you're chasing the calm then after that, you know, like, and in ways, like, I was always a very anxious person. I was a big worrier as a kid, and panic attacks would have been a big part of my story as well. And even up to last year, you know, touch wood. And, you know, I suppose I had kind of OCD, you know, that obsessive compulsive disorder thing. And I wasn't diagnosed with that until I was 37. So I just always thought I was mental, and I just had to do these things, you know, like washing the hands and opening and shutting the door, turning on and off the light, and counting till everything feels right, you know. And and the drink would have been part of my way of trying to just escape all of that as well. Do you know, if I didn't do these things, my kids would die, you know, I'd be responsible for their deaths, and those kinds of thoughts still creep in, you know, they do. And now I take, for the last 2 years nearly, I take medication for that, because it really helps me function
very good
on a daily basis. Otherwise, I mean, you know, it's the anxiety and the panic, and, you know.
What was it like to find out at 37, you know, and you were wondering all those years, what was wrong with me? Am I just mad? Is there something wrong with me? And then all of a sudden you're diagnosed with OCD.
Yeah.
Did it help you out?
It did. It really did. It put a name on those things, and the counsellor recommended me a book that I bought and that I read. Oh, jeepers, I can't remember the name of it now, but it was about how to deal with OCD, basically. And then you realise, oh, okay, that's an actual thing, and it's not, I'm not necessarily, you know, because I used to think sometimes that I would just be taken away. You know, things would get so crazy in my own head, you know, that just taken away and locked up, like.
Most of the time I should have been just taken away.
Yeah.
Taken away.
I think about it like,
Taken away.
And we're just trying to get away from ourselves.
Towards the end of my own, I spent most of my time locked in here. I'd be locked in here for 3-4 days at a time, because I wasn't able to go out and drink functionally in a pub because of the amount of drugs I was using. And I wasn't socially able to interact with people either, because I was completely paranoid, you know. So
that's terrible.
It does end. But you know what? That was all part of my what is it? Rock bottom.
Yeah,
it was all leading up to this end, you know. And like I remember sitting in this. No, you can't see it now, like, but there was a chair right there, and I'd sit there and I'd be there to myself, and I'd say, what is wrong with me? Like 4 days into it, no sleep, and I'd be still sitting there, and I'd say, what is wrong with me? Why can't I? And I said, God, what's wrong? Like, why can't I stop? And I'd be praying away, and next 2 minutes later, I'd either have a drink or a bottle, or I'd take a line of cocaine or something, you know. And I'm just asking whoever, like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I stop? And I praying and everything, and gone back into it. Then 2 seconds later.
It's madness.
But there's been occasions there as well where I went cold turkey from heroin.
Oh,
you know, if I lock myself in, if I lock myself into a room, generally in my dad's gaff, lock myself into a room for about 5 days, go through hell, right? And the thing with cold turkey is, it's intense and it's 5 days. But when you start feeling physically better, you'll fool yourself into using again. And there's been times where you're actually injecting the drugs and crying at the same time.
Oh,
because
God.
You know what's ahead of you.
Yeah.
You're just after putting through 5 nights where there was no sleep, insomnia, suicidal ideation, all this self-harm thoughts, right? You got through all that and here you are using again.
Oh,
and there's
an awful thing. It's an
the
awful
drugs
monkey.
are going in, the tears are coming out, and that's a place. That's one of the darkest places you can be, because you know what you're doing is, but you can't stop yourself from doing it. It's like what you're praying to God to be relieved from, but you're taking a line to Him minutes later. The insanity of it.
It is the insanity, and it's a liminal space, isn't it? It's like a space between two worlds, like, you know.
Yeah, and death then becomes
you're stuck there.
Death becomes appealing.
Yeah.
No, you don't care if you live or die.
That's it. I remember one night going up, like, as part of my drinking, I suppose, I'd go off with anybody at the end of the night. Like, that's just it. I have to say that because that's true for me. And there was one guy in Cork one night, and I was going away with him, and I just thought to myself, he might kill me. And then I thought, I don't care. You know, I don't care. And I feel such compassion for that person now. You know, like that I had to feel that way. You know.
I suppose that's what happens, really, Vicky. In the end, where you lose complete respect. Like I did myself. I've often said it. I really didn't think I'd live to the age of 30. I had no plans in life.
Yeah, that's it.
None.
Yeah, me neither. I never had a plan.
I never had any plans because I literally thought, right, what's the point? I'm not going to live to my 30th birthday. I just keep doing what I'm doing. I know I'm either going to die at some stage. And you do anything you want, you know. And I'm sure a lot of people that are listening here can completely relate to what you just said, you know, because that's how it works.
It is.
That is exactly how it works. Your honesty right now is brilliant. You know, and I want to commend you for that.
Yeah.
You know,
just if it helps anybody, that's
it'll
all
help
it's
everybody,
about.
because it'll help everybody.
And it's not so easy to get a female in recovery on the podcast.
Really?
You know, in spite of our best efforts.
Are you serious?
You'll be surprised.
Wow, what's that about?
I don't know.
That's interesting now.
We're open to any females coming on that have obviously a bit of time behind them, you know, because they have to be in a good place in their own lives. We can't be bringing somebody on that's a little bit vulnerable and they go into themselves afterwards. It's just not right for them. It wouldn't be right for us. It wouldn't be the right thing for me and James to do either. You know,
we just haven't found the right person, I suppose. There's been interest, But yeah, we just have to try and protect people too, I suppose.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right, because people can, we're all vulnerable.
Yeah, and when you're in early recovery, you're like, recovery is great, and I'm going to champion this, and I'm going to put and then people put themselves out there. Then if a relapse happens, and this does happen, somebody puts themselves out there too early, they're under immense pressure to maintain it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes relapse does happen.
Yeah.
You don't want the added pressure of going public, and then the relapse becomes this huge guilt and shame thing.
You might never crawl out from under.
Exactly. So we're always like, you have to be very stable in your recovery. You have to have a bit of time behind you.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
Yeah, because if you have somebody in 4 or 5 weeks sober and they're on the news or the Echo or the radio or on the podcast, they're under a lot of pressure to relapse, and maybe relapse was always going to happen.
Absolutely.
Do you know?
This is just going to tip them over.
It's added pressure. So anyway, that's always in the thinking. But anyway, we're delighted to have you on.
Thank you.
How did the drinking come to a head? How did it end?
Badly, really. I mean,
never ends well.
It doesn't end well. Surprise, No. There's, it's always going to be bad. Like, you can count on that. But I suppose I drank away through my 30s. I decided to go back to education when I was 37. I decided to apply to UCC and do a music degree there, and I had done a FOSS course in Toker, out in Toker. There was a music course there. It was brilliant, and I did that for I think a year and a bit. Norries, lovely woman, so I got into UCC. I was delighted, but sure, like, I was still drinking. I thought I was 17, going out and drinking with people and having coffee instead of going to lectures. Yeah. It's just like, this is my new social life now. I mean, I loved every aspect of it. I loved the music, I loved the lectures, I loved the people there. It was just brilliant. But sure, I crashed out of that after a year, so that would have been, I was 38. And then for the next 2 years, just got into all kinds of, like, things were just getting worse and worse. The things I was doing were just getting worse and worse. And I had this rule that when I was doing gigs that I'd never drink before a gig, and sure, like, you just you take a glass of wine then, like, at the break, and you just keep going until you pass out after that, like, I'd never drink before a gig. I'll just get langers during the gig and afterwards, God, the things we say to ourselves to try and fool ourselves, like. But so I had a gig with my friend Anya, who I wrote the song with, and it was in a pub in Crosshaven, and the night before, I was up in a B&B in Cork with this young fella, and we'd bought loads of drink and loads of Valium. I'd gotten Valium from the doctor as well, and I had so we started drinking at breakfast and then drove back down to Crosshaven because my youngest daughter, had a communion party. A friend of hers was having her communion, and I just remember just being really stroppy there, like, and I took a bottle of champagne out of their fridge at my daughter's friend's communion party, got into my car and drove down to the gig, langers, and I crashed my car into a car that was carrying 5 teenage girls, and it's only a miracle that nobody was hurt, like, like an absolute miracle, like. And so I was arrested because I got stroppy with the guard, and I was brought up to the Bridewell and put into a cell there, and my parents came up and collected me, like, I was 40.
What year are we talking about?
Talking 2010.
Okay, 10
May
years.
the 8th, 2010.
Something like that needs to happen.
It does, yeah.
For somebody that loves alcohol or substance so much, it really needs something bad like that to happen for us to really say, what the fuck is going on?
You're very lucky because there's that sometimes ends in death, and it could be multiple deaths there. Like,
there could have been. I mean, I think I was on the wrong side of the road. I probably wasn't going very fast, but I mean, I don't know. And, like, it was just my higher power, I suppose, looking out for me there. And, like, because that was my second crash. I'd crashed a couple of years previously to that, and I'd gone out through the windscreen of the car. And now I didn't hurt myself, I just broke my ribs, like, but, I was kept in overnight and stuff. But, so I was put off the road for a year at that stage, and then I got back on. Sure, drink driving was a big part of my story, you know. It's a shame now thinking about that.
I was
Do you know? Yeah.
I was caught drink driving twice in the space of a week and a half, 2 weeks. Twice. I was arrested once for drink driving. I was drunk over the limit.
God almighty.
They arrested me the second time for drug driving. I came back drink driving, and I thought nothing of it.
Yep.
You know, I literally would drive on. You know, I didn't really care. But if I thought they were getting too close to me, then I would stop.
Yeah.
You know, I literally no understanding of the consequences of my actions if I hurt somebody.
Absolutely.
You know, but fortunately, nobody ever got hurt, only myself. I often woke up knowing a car in bits or something after crashing the car and look out the window next morning, the car was a ride off as well.
Oh my God.
But that was another part of my story, you know. And
it just goes to show the self-centeredness and the selfishness of an addiction.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, being a young fella now, you'd go and rob a car if you couldn't come up off the ease.
Okay,
and you'd be driving along. Now, I'd be a passenger because I couldn't drive back then.
Yeah.
But next, all of a sudden, the heat hit you and the music hit you, and you're fucking demented in the car, and you're on the wrong side of the road, crashing into things. But you've no concept of you could actually harm somebody. This is somebody's car, or that's somebody's property, or you're on the wrong side of the road. It just doesn't come into your psyche. It doesn't come into your mind at all.
Not at all.
When you're in addiction, it's just a pure selfish condition.
Ego, and I know, like it was explained to me when I went for a treatment. You've got really low self-esteem, and then your ego goes up to here. So that's a really dangerous combination, you know. And like it was all ego, you know. When I was drinking, I was absolutely awful, you know. Did awful things, and the thought of that now, like the thought of anybody crashing into one of my kids, you know, I'd want to fucking kill that person. I just want to kill them.
And that's a normal reaction.
Yep, totally normal.
I'd be the same, you know, if I came across somebody that acted like the way I did back then, I would be fairly pissed as well, you know, and I'm fortunate that I never hurt anybody, and I've been in a few really bad accidents, either on bikes or cars or whatever, you know, and I'm really, really blessed, you know, that I'd never hurt anybody like that, you know, and I know it's wrong, and I'm sure there's going to be people that are watching the podcast may have had somebody hurt or something in a car crash by a drunk driver, like, and my heart really goes out to them.
Oh God, me too.
And that's the truth of it, you know. It's just
I can't believe
there's no explanation really, like.
I know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's just because when you come into recovery, you just become so caring as well. Like you want to help others, and then you just become this different person that is hard to associate with the person that was in the addiction and done those selfish, mean things that there's no consideration for anybody.
Yeah.
But just for people in addiction at the moment, you're not a bad person.
Yeah.
You might be doing bad things, but you know, once you box off the addiction and address that, the real person will come out.
That's
I
right.
suppose recovery allows us to make amends and kind of make good.
Yeah.
And did you find that process difficult, or in recovery, the guilt, the shame, and all this?
Really difficult.
How was your kids with you?
My daughter, my eldest daughter Alex, actually, who's in Amsterdam now, she's 26 now. She's 27. Yeah, but when
You're
she
in trouble anyway for getting that wrong.
I'm totally in trouble now. She's going to kill me. I love you.
Bye, Alex.
But so when she was 14, that was kind of when my drinking was getting really bad. She left home. She didn't want to live with me anymore. And she went into live with her grandparents, and not an ideal situation. Do you know? I mean, it wasn't up to them to be raising her, and she didn't really want to be there. But you know, it worked out in terms of for her, because she would go anywhere rather than live with me. She'd had enough of me. She didn't want to know me, and it was. I think I was sober nearly 3 years when she came back to live with me then, you know, and that was huge. My youngest daughter, Billy, she's 16, she would have been 6 when I stopped drinking. So she would have not as many vivid memories as the others, you know. But it's been very difficult for my 2 sons, you know. And my eldest son, we've a difficult relationship, but we love each other to bits as well, you know. Like, and my younger son then, he's had his own struggles, not with addiction, but with other things. And so it's never, you know, there are consequences to what you do, you know, no matter what you do, like, and sometimes facing them is really difficult, and sometimes it's very heavy, you know, and just get bad days. And at this stage, I kind of I allow myself to say I'm not feeling great today.
Yeah,
you know,
it's part of life, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know, some days are tough, you know, and there's the baggage follows, and consequences are lasting sometimes, you know. But you can only do what you're doing today.
Yeah,
I think like what I'm getting from your energy is you have big, happy, glowy energy.
Oh, thanks a
You
million.
know, people always say it to me when I tell them how, if I'm ever talking to them about my past or whatever, and they say, "Well, you were doing this."
I know,
and
yeah.
I say, well, yeah. but you know, that's the difference of the two different people.
Yeah.
You know, Timmy back then to Timmy how I am now. You know, I live as I can be as hot as I was back then.
Yeah.
You know, I can still have a bit of fire in my belly. I still have that fire, you know, but my behaviours in terms of the way I was, they're gone.
Yeah.
You know, and I was listening to you were talking about your daughters and your sons, you know, and your daughter going back in after the 3 years. That was great to have that little bit of a bonding process as well.
Brilliant, like, she's brilliant, you know. She's such a star, like, you know.
I could be in the same situation. I could be sitting in your chair now talking about that too, because I have a young family as well.
Yeah.
But I managed to give it up at a younger age, you know, and I had my wife who wasn't in addiction or anything like that to be able to bring the kids up and shield them from my madness and the chaotic behaviours that were going on in my life at the time. You know, and while you were talking, I was thinking of myself, you know, and my heart was going out to you, seriously. I was saying, geez, you know, because I know what it's like. You have no awareness of the actions, of your own actions when you're caught up in alcohol or drugs or whatever, you know. It's only when you stop and you get a little bit of awareness and you're left to deal with all these things that happened, you know, and you all have shame of it and the guilt.
And it just feels,
you know, but it does slowly get lighter and lighter and lighter, you know, as time goes by. But major thing for me was just giving yourself a small bit of compassion.
Definitely.
Yourself.
That took me years. That took me years now. Yeah, it did, you know. And I think I was impossible sometimes, even in sobriety, because I was just being, like people would say, stop being so hard on yourself. But I don't know, something in me, it was resisting it, I suppose, resisting that bit of compassion or something. But then, you know, like, I realised that all of those things I did when I was drinking, I haven't done any of them since I've been sober. You know, like, it's just not in my nature to do that stuff, you know, like, and so I suppose that counts for something, you know. Like,
it's like when you're caught up in addiction, you're what, everything. You do whatever you want. You know, regardless of what other people think or what you're doing to them, it's all about me and my drink and my drugs and you know, and everybody else can whatever, and
that's all. Everybody else just in the way, aren't they?
And then
just
when you stop, all that changes. You know.
But you're 10 years in recovery now.
10 years in recovery.
You're going well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your music? Maybe the music you sing, your musical influences and your musical career.
Jesus, I've always been writing, I suppose, like, you know, writing words and things like that. I was writing poetry and stories when I was a kid, and I suppose I didn't start really putting them to music till I was in my 20s maybe, and started writing songs. And I was always in music. I wasn't in a band. First band I was in was with my ex-husband, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, and their friend. And that's the first time I sang in public. And then I was always asked to do stuff after that. I was in a Bob Dylan band for years, and then I started writing my own stuff in another original band. And then I was in, when I suppose I was around 30, I had my first band with all my material in it. And I kind of went on from there, really. I suppose I was always asked to do things. But then when I met Dick, as I said, I started singing with Christy and them, you know, and that was brilliant. That was amazing because, you know, you're watching a professional machine just doing what it should be doing. And of course, you know, Christy being sober and everything, people know about that, you know. It's a very safe place to be, you know. There's no alcohol.
It's ideal, really.
Totally ideal, you know.
And he's such a legend as well.
He's amazing.
But he seems like an ordinary guy that you could know airs and graces about him, even though he is a living legend.
Yeah.
What's he like in the flesh? Or what's it like to work with him?
It's brilliant because he's so professional. Everything around him it works so smoothly. He's a fantastic team built up around him. But that's because he is who he is. You know, he's people who've been with him for the last 20 years more. Everybody around him, Paddy, Mick, Johnny, Dickon, Davy, Jeff, all the lads, they're all brilliant people and just great to be around. And he's so, like, he gets nervous every time he goes on stage every night. He's nervous, you know? That shows how much he cares about what he's doing.
You can see how passionate he is about his music. When, like, I'm a big Christy Moore fan myself.
Oh, brilliant!
The first two songs I learned on the guitar.
Stop!
It was Black as the Colour and Ride On.
Oh, lovely!
And I used to be inside in Midlands at the time, and I'd just be inside it, and I'd be practicing, keep practicing. I used to love it. You know, the words of them songs. I would have bought a book as well afterwards called Ride On by Jimmy McCarthy, and I looked at, because there was a lot of the songs that Christy sings and other artists sing, and I wanted to know the background to the actual music itself.
Oh, lovely.
And Jimmy explains each song on it.
Oh, brilliant.
And Bright Blue Rose was one of them, and I was saying, what, a lot of the words, and then I was saying, I was trying to figure it out, you know, and I bought the book, and I looked at it. And it explains a lot of it, and the Contender as well by that's a fantastic song.
Oh my god, that makes me cry every time. Like,
and sure it's Jack Doyle.
It's exactly, I read his biography. It wasn't by him, but it was by somebody else. Maybe 15-20 years ago. Such a sad story. Another, you know, he died a drunk, like.
I know. He
died
so
sad.
He died with nothing.
Yeah,
he
nothing.
Died with nothing. For somebody that had everything. He was married to a Mexican woman by was it?
He stole her off Marilyn Brando.
Yeah. He actually gave Clark Gable a few clatters.
He did actually.
Jesus, there's drama.
I know.
That's an exclusive. No TMZ.
He's from Cobh as well. Yeah.
But he was a massive man. He was 6'4". He was a boxer.
Yeah.
And he went to
Hollywood.
A fantastic singer.
Oh, he was an incredible singer, apparently. Really good singer, and an actor and everything. You know.
And do you know what? That makes me proud as well, not just to be a Corkman, but Irish, to know that somebody had such a stature in America in those movie times. Scene and the music. You know.
Yeah.
It sounded like he was quite confident and. You know,
definitely.
You were talking there about the mother and baby homes, and you wrote a song about it, which you're going to perform a little bit of that there now. So in your own time, or was there anything you want to say before you start singing?
Yeah, just to say that, you know, this incident with the 798 children happened in one mother and baby home in Ireland, and it's unknown how many instances of that there are really all throughout the country. And if you just think of how one family might be impacted by the loss of a brother or a sister that they never knew anything about, and they're searching for all their lives, just wanting to find out what happened to them. So you imagine, or the mother who was, you know, put in there because of shame, and, you know, the shame to do about sex in our society, the shame about being, you know, an unmarried mother, and the child being illegitimate, and all of those things are carried down to subsequent generations. Do you know, like, we talk about, you know, we wonder why we have a problem with addiction in this country, and with alcohol, and why people are experiencing homelessness, and why they're wandering the streets. You know, like, we have to ask ourselves, like, is that just a symptom of something deeper? I think that's a symptom of the real cause, which is, I think we have a problem with the truth in this country. We have a culture of denial around things, trauma that happened on a national level, and they're never spoken about, you know. And it's like, when you don't speak about something, it stagnates and it builds up and it poisons things, you know, like water that's gone toxic because it's stagnant. That's the same kind of energy that we're passing down from generation to generation. And unless there's acknowledgement of that and an apology, there can't be any healing, and we'll carry it with us for future generations. So we have an opportunity now, once and for all, to acknowledge it, heal it, and move on.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's all those people want, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here, and what's going through my head at this moment is how lucky I am, and how lucky my kids are that we're living in these times. That
Absolutely.
Like, if we were living back then.
But even in these times, it's happening in direct provisions, and it's happening in prisons and in homeless hostels. We're still neglecting a whole cohort of people.
Yeah.
And the direct provision people of today are going to be the mother and baby homes of yesterday.
Absolutely.
And we're repeating the cycle over and over again.
Yeah, we are.
And
we
you know
are
that needs to be acknowledged too.
Yeah, it all needs to be acknowledged, like, because, you know, as you said, you know, that's going to be the mother and baby homes of tomorrow, and all of these people are falling through the cracks in our society. We can't allow them to fall through. Do you know, we have to have a support net for them. Do you know, we have very little mental health services for youth. We were just talking there, James, a while ago about you know, there's the prison or there's the homeless shelter.
The prison or the homeless shelter, and that's
nothing in between. You know, like, why? You know, how many pubs do we have in this country? How many hotels are they building? Don't tell me there's not money there for them. I don't believe that for a second. You know,
with footbridges worth $1 million in between two other bridges that
because we need a footbridge so bad.
But look, we digress.
Yeah, we do.
We bring it back to you, and your little song that you wrote with your friend about the mother and baby homes.
Cool, thanks, James. This is the mother and baby home. It's called The Poor Ground, and we wanted to write it so that all of these people would never be forgotten. We need to remember them, and it's by myself and Anya O'Gorman and Jamie Kelly, and I'm going to use Timmy's bar on, if he doesn't mind. That he made.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. When I began to love a refuge, a dream, I lost my hold on earth when I began to love. When I began to love, a tiny spark that burned just for a little while. When I began to love. When your essence creeps and your thoughts they creep, and it hurts to breathe 'cause you cannot tell me where you might be found in the poorest ground. Not a single sound, only memory. Don't forget us.
Very good, both of us. Very good. And look, if people want to connect with you, they can through your social medias, and they can support your music through.
I do a live Facebook show every Friday night at 8 o'clock.
Very good.
Little Rooms, Big Music. That's the name of my Facebook page. Like so, yeah.
And we link all your social medias in the description here. So again, thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
I just want to thank you for your honesty again.
Thanks so much, Timmy.
For being so honest about your story.
Thanks. There's no point in coming here if you're not going to be honest, because you set the bar that way by being honest yourselves.
Yeah. And so many different women, particularly, are going to really relate to your story, and it's going to help them as well, and it's going to help them to understand the grip of alcoholism that it can have on any mother, not just yourself or them, any mother, so I commend you for that. Well done.
And hi to your kids.
Yeah, hello Alex.
in Amsterdam.
Alex in Amsterdam.
Brilliant.
Billy, Gino and Sam.
Yeah.
Billy, every one of them. Hello.
And hi Christy.
And hi Christy.
Hi Christy.
And hi to my grandson David. Jesus, I can't be killed.
Hi David.
But and thanks to everybody at home and everybody listening and watching in Australia, Canada, the UK, Germany, the Cayman Islands and everything. There's people listening, so great to have you on board, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And before we leave, I just want to say a big thank you to, and I have to read it because I won't remember it, the Department of Rural and Community Development and the Cork City Local Community Development Committee for providing us with €1,000 grant, which we were able to buy brand new camera, a brand new tripod and a lovely desk so that Rowan can assemble everything in a nice little streamlined and clean way. So thanks a million, Cork City Council, for the grant, and we'll see everybody next week. Slán.